Welcome to ASU Gamage Digital Connections. We are so honored to have acclaimed theater artists Aaron Landsman and Daniel Alexander Jones joining us. Daniel Alexander Jones exemplifies the artist as energy worker. The Herb Alpert Foundation notes that he creates multidimensional experiences where bodies, minds, emotions, voices, and spirits conjoin, shimmer, and heal. Jones is a TED Fellow, a 2019 Guggenheim Fellow, and a Doris Duke Artist Award recipient. Aaron Landsman is a New York-based artist and cultural organizer. He's worked on several projects with ASU Gamage and is delighted to be getting together with Daniel under their kind sky. Landsman is a 2014 to 2016 ASU Gamage Artist in Residence, a 2018 Guggenheim Fellow, and a recipient Princeton Arts Fellow. A recent Princeton Arts Fellow. He's an artist in residence at Abrams Arts Center and on the Lower East Side. His first book, co-authored with Mallory Catlett and called No One is Qualified about politics and performance, is coming out next year with the University of Iowa Press. Jones and Landsman have named this evening's program A Guide to Close Reading, the spaces between us. As we experience this moment of evolution in our communities, this program finds its form in both conversation and performance. Aaron Landsman and Daniel Alexander Jones are creating this work to embody the layers and maps of what it means to be with each other now. At ASU Gamage, we are so glad to host this presentation, especially as it is a moment amidst Jones and Landsman's continuing 20-year dialogue. As we begin, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors who provide funding to our cultural participation and community programs, as well as thank our VIP donors. So I'm so honored to turn it over to Aaron Landsman and Daniel Alexander Jones.
Hey.
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 All right. Everything I make these days feels like some derivation of an essay.
Essay means to try.
The two of us have been in conversation for a long time, as artists, as teachers,
As friends and allies in some of the big subjects like America, race, sexuality, identity, etc. We talk a lot about etc.
Yes. Our conversations cross between the surfaces of what we call topical and what we might call the depths.
Fancy.
Always fancy. And now we're saying hello and we're asking people to join us in this ongoing conversation, this series of essays for a short time.
Yeah, very short time. TikTok.
Okay. A couple things. We like structure. I'm a Capricorn. I love me some spreadsheets.
And we've structured our conversation here, but we also like surprises. And I'm an Aquarian. I like a little bit of a rupture there from time to time.
Right. So we invited a couple of special guests as a surprise for later. There's also going to be a more normal Q&A kind of thing at the end, but you all can basically play along.
Play along.
That was what we were talking about, right?
Why would they want to play along? I mean, is this conversation a game to you, Aaron?
I thought that,
Yeah, but wait, is there a prize at the end?
Oh, there's always a prize. What is the prize this time? It's a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
We usually know what the prize is at the end of our conversation.
Yeah, like the latte or the fountain pen.
I never received the pen. All right. We're inviting you into a process, kind of pulling away the veils, which is fun.
Mm-hmm. But not too many veils too soon, my friend, my ally.
Sorry. It's been a week where like a lot has come up in the world. A lot of topical and a lot of depth. So what we're going to involve you in is like an activity, because people need activities now, no matter how old you are. Like any parent right now is like, how do I keep my kid off video games while they're supposed to be doing remote learning, right? For adults, maybe it's a little bit more like, how do I keep myself from doom scrolling Twitter no matter what else I'm supposed to be doing? So, right. So, what's our subject?
So there's a bell, going back to structure, and each time the bell will ring, it'll be on to the next piece. Structure. So Aaron, will you kindly make the invitation?
Yes. So I think it's hospitable to be super clear and direct.
Are you calling me inhospitable, or are you just happy to see me?
Always. Now here's our request. We're going to have a conversation, and we're wondering, will you draw a map?
And the name of this conversation is A Guide to Close Reading, the spaces between us. And reading is about, well, reading.
So join with us in a conversation that is already in progress. In fact, it's generations long.
And you don't have to draw all that on the map, right? But we're going to fill that part in. Our conversation's been happening, and it'll keep happening with you.
So here's what you need. Something to write on, maybe something to write with, a commitment to exploration with no apparent destination, and a willingness to uncover your own map, your own place, your own story, whatever that means. A desire to read closer with us. And if you want, you can share it with us in the Q&A.
Yeah, groovy.
All right, remind us what we're reading about.
Oh. Okay. Each exchange that we have can lead y'all to part of the map that you're going to make. Ready? Ready, Aaron? Great. All right. So we're going to do a warm-up round. I'm going to give a subject, off topic, types of reading. That means the kinds of reading that we can do. So, ready? Go.
Go. Reading for history.
Reading for the discovery.
Reading for the yet to be known.
Reading for the beloved.
Reading for filth.
Now, come on, Aaron. It's a family show. Reading for gory details.
Reading for the easy laugh.
Reading for galactic depth.
Reading for the notion of self.
Reading for fear.
Reading for liberation.
Reading for points.
Reading for the hell of it.
Reading for the grade.
Test.
The win.
Reading as cartography.
Ooh. Cartography. Say more, Aaron Landsman.
All right. Here are some suggestions for the kind of maps you might want to make. You could make a topographical map. You could make a political map. You could make a geography map. You could make a physical map or a character map, an astronomical map, an oceanic map, a property map, a history map, a story map. Any of these are fair game.
A note on cartography regarding exploration and invitation. Only so much information gets included on a map, right? Just enough to orient you, enough to warn you of danger, like if there's bears over there or sharks in that water. but not so much as to prevent you from having your own experience. The map as a kind of guide.
All right. So the way this works is we're going to ask each other some questions and try to answer each other.
Yeah, we're going to read each other.
Exactly.
I'm reading energy right there, Aaron. You like that?
that was that official hand signal for energy reading?
Yeah, that's energy reading.
All right. See, now I learned something already. I haven't even started making a map. Okay. So with each question, you want to feel free to hold your response in your mind's eye as you make your own map.
You ready, Aaron?
Yeah. Are you?
Yeah, I stay ready. Now, are you all ready out there? Ready to make maps of what we're going to explore together?
Always ready. Go ahead, set the timer.
All right. This is going to be the timer. Actually, you know what? I think I'll use my phone. It's going to be more, it's the future.
Oh, timer. Beautiful.
Boom. Go. Have you ever had a recurring dream or nightmare?
So I've had some experiences with bears, literal bears, like actual bears. And each time a bear has come to me, once when I was 17 on a trip in Alaska, and then once when I was 22 at a spiritual retreat, in New Mexico. There were bears in my presence. And each time the bear would make a visit, the bear would then start visiting me in dreams. And a bear in my dream means often the bear is either I'm carrying the bear or the bear is carrying me. And there's something significant about the bear in my dreams because it has to do with a fear and a possibility. I'm going to leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Oh, what is the earliest place you remember? That really would be the overnight camp that my grandmother used to run. It was for the Girls Clubs of America, and she would take me out in the summers with her, and I was the only boy. And I loved that camp because it was just full of so much beauty, and it was like the woods and the lake. But my favorite part was being able to be sitting like tucked in as a little kid among all of these girls and all these women as they would gather to do like the opening council fire and like tell the stories of the land. And they were all different backgrounds, all different races, all different classes, and some folks from different parts of the world. And when I close my eyes, I can still smell the smoke from that fire. What is?
Oh, I'm gonna give you a little aside that about maps. Yeah, just gonna tell you one little thing about maps. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I know we're on time, but did you know that people are able to read simple maps even before we can read text? And so I call that attachment theory of place.
I love that image and that idea. And I think about like the maps on cave walls and, these sorts of, again, guiding posts for like, we learn how to sustain ourselves through the symbols that we leave one another too. So
that's right.
Aaron?
All right.
What is the balm you need?
Man, this is a tough one. Somehow it has to do with belief. It has to do with the sense of fracturing that I think many of us are feeling, some of which feels necessary and some of which feels just harrowing. And so the balm for me would be when things get especially tilting toward the harrowing on the scales of our time. Is there a belief that sustains me or that sustains us? Whether the us is the two of us in conversation or other people making maps out there or a larger us. I'm questioning right now what the belief that could salve this time might be. Okay. So Daniel. Oop. Oh, yeah, we're still learning our camera work, right? No, it's off. Okay.
There it is. Okay, show where small misunderstandings reside. And if you have an exit strategy to get them out of your body. So I would have to say that there's the obvious of walking through the world with certain kinds of microaggressions, and there's the obvious of feeling like I'm someone who deeply, deeply desires an open heart and open connection with strangers that I meet, and the kinds of oblique blockages that happen when you're out in the world, and especially now where we're masked and where we're afraid of proximity with one another. And there's a kind of sadness that I feel that maybe mirrors in a bigger way the larger political divide that we all are experiencing, and the sense of being retrenched from one another. And I carry that weight that I want to be able to walk up and shake people's shoulders and say, hey, I see you, and can you see me? And I think, they would come and they would take me away right now. And in all seriousness, I wonder, like, what do you do with those small yearnings to connect with people every day? Where do I put them? And I don't know that they've exited me. I feel the weight of them in my chest.
Yeah, I hear that. I think the small misunderstandings in a funny way, they can magnify given that we're covering more of ourselves. So there's just a little window in which we can try to perceive and apprehend each other. And it's easier for those places to get misplaced. Thank you for that.
When were you freest? And you should note that freest is what's called a superlative adjective.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, I'm going to try to get superlative with my freestness. I know that when I came to New York City for the first time, and I recognized it as my home immediately. Even before I lived there, I visited on my own when I was 16 and spent a week just walking. And that's something I do all the time. I walk sometimes 2-3 hours a day if I can. And New York is an amazing walking town. So I would say that where I feel freest is making my stride happen through streets that feel like home, even if I feel like a stranger there. So now it's like walking through a city, but being able to walk long distances. I started walking long distances when I was about 8.5, and I could keep up a 3, 4, 5 mile walk at that time, even growing up near a river, walking by the river. And so the combination of walking and a city that I feel still, with all of its complications and difficulties, holds me, and where there are a lot of different bodies and voices that are welcome.
That's beautiful. I can hold you in my mind's eye walking, and it's a beautiful image.
Thanks. All right. Now we're going to get a little more specific.
Ooh. Other way.
Oh, except we're going to hold it.
There we go. Yeah, perfect.
When did you learn what gender is?
Was. Whoa.
Or could be.
Okay.
And now, what is your map of gender, Daniel Jones?
Well, I will say that, my experience of gender, like at that camp, was something that just, like, I never had a sense of being different from the people that I was around. Maybe even from the trees that I was around, if that makes sense. And so when I began to learn that I was distinct from, I began to pay attention to the codes that came along with being distinct from, in relationship to who I wanted to be near, who I wanted to hang out with, and who I wanted to spend time with. And so I think maybe, a good lesson in gender came in the fourth grade when in 1978 everybody was listening to Grease, and I couldn't go see Grease because it was too grown of a movie for me. But everybody in my class was either one of the rockabilly guys or a pink lady, and I wanted to be a
Mm,
pink lady. I was like, they have better
mm,
clothes, and I liked hanging out with the girls, and I remember being told by them that I couldn't be a pink lady, but I could be their secretary. So I took notes for them, like stenography notes in their little side hustle business in the fourth grade. So maybe gender could be being the secretary to the pink ladies. And my map of gender now is I would say more like a map of a moving sky, where the cloud formations shape and reshape and reshape. That's my answer to
beautiful.
that, Aaron Landsman.
I love that. I love that.
All right, I'm gonna come for you now. You ready?
Oh, I knew it.
How do
How do
you
you show
show your masculinity?
your, yeah, this is I don't know. I'm not gonna, I feel like my answer is in my body a little bit, right? Like I
Uh,
don't know how to speak this one entirely. I know if I think back to when I began to understand that any part of me was masculine, because I don't know that I knew or felt what that meant. There were a couple things. One was that I feel like the me that discovered he was becoming male, and was being seen as male, kind of relished a certain tension between brokenness and wholeness, that feels very boy, if not man, right? Like all kinds of safety pins on my clothes. Never bought a new clothing item from the time I was about 14 till the time I was about, like, I don't know, you know, 42. And I really thrived on having clothes that I needed to stitch together myself and that showed their seams, in some way
mm,
or another. And then the wholeness comes from admitting the seams, I guess. The wholeness comes from letting, whatever that maleness is for me, exist in a kind of tentative state. So I guess it's like safety pins.
safety pins. That's
The
hot.
other thing maybe the other thing maybe I'll say is that,
Yeah.
I show it now as a father, you know,
Mm,
because I'm raising a little boy, and his openness and his kind heart and his absolute Dennis the Menace style boyness, feels like that's a balm. That's a balm on the daily. Okay, not to get too maudlin, but as soon as you start talking about your kids, you know. Speaking
mm.
of which, Daniel,
Who was I at
who were
7
you
years
at
old?
7 years old?
Yeah.
It's
I
a very
was
specific age.
very specific age. In some ways, they say, right, who you are at 7 is who you will be. There's some degree of formation there. I remember myself at 7 in 1977 as someone who walked also with a lot of sadness. And my imagination was the place that I loved to live best, to read books, to think about superheroes. But I spent a lot of time outside, and I spent a lot of time dreaming of being in my future. So I would leave being where I was at 7 to go to some imagined future.
Mm.
And I would imagine who I would have as friends and where I would go and what I would do. And I think there was probably a little bit of imagining that I might have some superpowers at that time. But a little melancholy, pretty
Mm.
serious. I had to be responsible at 7 in some ways. That I think I look back now and say that was a weight and a dreamer.
Mm. Yeah, I hear that. I'm going to reflect to the, in a prior conversation, what we share from that age is that our imaginations both ran wild and were very specific, that we were imagining very specific, adventures or families or, kind of very detailed and earthbound arrangements that I feel like is we've watched
Speaking
each
of Earth
other.
Sound arrangements,
Oh,
what was your song at 7, Aaron Landsman? Did you have a jam at 7?
I'm gonna tell you the jam. I'm gonna tell you a couple jams because one is gonna one might break the internet. Because the first live music
Ooh.
I saw in concert was none other than John Denver on a rotating stage, and so the song "Country Roads Take Me Home," yeah, was that tour of 1976. He has it on a rotating stage. You could tell that the jokes were let's say pre-planned, but I loved listening to that whole album. And also he had a Western shirt with like an incredible like sun splash on it that took over like the whole left side of his shirt. Like the man's heart was on fire. So John Denver was my jam, and then later I would say I graduated. But if I'm going to be totally honest, about 7 years old is John Denver.
Honesty is the best policy, always. Country Road,
All right.
take me home, you said.
All right. This is what we're going to do together. Am I right?
I believe it is. Ready? 1, 2,
All
boom.
right.
Yeah, is being sexy a revolution, Aaron Landsman?
Yes, it is. And what does that mean? What forms does that take? And who are we talking about when we talk about sexy as a revolution?
When did Prince first enter your life? Okay.
Yeah.
So we should also confess we both have a little bit, you more so than I, a Minneapolis thing. We both have a little connection there. So Aaron, when did Prince first enter your life?
Prince first entered my life in the Controversy album. In terms of like really coming into my life, in terms of me really going to a church, and it was on a cassette tape. If anybody remembers cassette tapes, yes. And it was a clear cassette tape, and I feel like that was kind of an innovation.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah. And so it was that album, and there was a sense of like, I don't know how to put this. I'm going to punish y'all for not being free enough. And I feel like that was, yeah.
He punished you for not being free enough.
And so it was like, all right, Prince. I guess I don't have a choice but to get more free. What about for you?
I would say that Prince came into my life and terrified me because I thought he was so fine. And so like I hadn't really dealt with not with my sexual orientation I had, but with my sexuality. Like what did it mean to feel that kind of passion? And so I remember around the time of, probably around the time of 1999 was when I first saw Prince on a video, and I was like, oh my goodness. And I remember I ran out of the room. And when he would come on like the video shows or whatever, I would run out of the room or turn the channel on the radio because my heart would start going and I didn't know how to deal with that. So I think for me, he was like the ignition switch for my own connection to desire.
Right. And there's one more on our list of Prince questions, and I had to write it down because I forgot to print it with all of my Capricorn. Has he contributed to your overall sanity?
I'll tell you, he's contributed to my sense of disappointment and chaos in the world by dying when he did. I'll say that for real. I miss his presence. I miss his presence. How about for you?
I mean, I always feel like knowing that man was out there making music, it adds to the depth of sorrow, and it also still helps me feel like, I don't know, whatever I might want to make or say or do, there's still somewhere else to reach for. Because the thing that is so powerfully wrenching about him leaving us is that there was still a lot more. And it's sounds that we won't know. But knowing that that's there is one of those things that keeps me sane.
How important is getting lost to your capacity to read?
Oh, wait, now are we skipping one?
I am skipping one.
Okay.
I'm being a little tricksy.
All right, be tricksy. Getting lost is the key to everything. I'm going to say like, we're talking about maps today. And one of the things is very like nerdy in a way, but we all use Google Maps, or we all use whatever map, Waze when you're driving and stuff. But the fact is that getting lost allows you to find your way better. And a paper map, a thing that you unfold, and a thing that you work with in your hands, actually allows you to learn the space that you're in. Literally, just because you're going like, you're looking at a thing and then you're looking out in front of you. And so reading in that sense, like I like to read out of my depth. I love reading theory. Just like it becomes a map to a place I haven't been before. And I love looking at paper maps because they help me be both lost and find myself. So yeah. Now you want to go back or go forward, Daniel Jones?
Well, I would say go forward.
We're going to go forward. This is a long one, and I have a
Who
little
sees
story to
you?
add.
Who watches you?
Who
Who watches over you? Who watches out for you? Huh.
Now, I want to tell you a tiny anecdote about this. I don't know exactly what this means, but my therapist said, come up with an ancestor to bring into your meditation practice. And I couldn't quite think of what that meant. My grandpa Boone was a test pilot. My grandpa Manny owned a liquor store. My ancestors don't really exist in me beyond that, or I don't want them to. Are we at time?
We're at time.
I want to hear your answer to that. Wow.
So, Aaron, isn't that what this signifies? This close reading? A body. Embodiment. And isn't that maybe what this map we've asked you all to make articulates? A kind of embodiment?
Embodiment of the subject.
The subject.
Which we haven't said yet. But maybe it's time.
Oh, wrong arm. TikTok. A note on cartography regarding exploration and invitation. Maps are useful only insofar as they reflect experience. The maps that were drawn from a cartographer's inability or unwillingness to venture into the unknown, or from their attempts to control what they saw, those maps are erroneous, full of inflated dimensions, foreshortened perspectives, and sea monsters. Aaron, does it ever feel like we are in a country that doesn't know how to grieve itself?
I don't know if I can answer that.
Maybe surprise. Maybe they can. Look at you.
Look at you.
Wow. Yeah, this 1977 with my knobby knees.
Oh, those sunflower and that belt.
Yeah, my Batman belt.
Right.
What year is it for you?
1970. That's probably like 1975 with my Minnesota Twins jacket. And my friends Lucas and Tessa Shirkin.
Lucas and Tessa. Aaron, what do you think they would have to say about it?
I think, sorry, I think that they would be, I think they'd be pretty matter of fact. I think they could say things like, hold on for dear life and mean it and not have it crash anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
I think they could hold space for us. Yeah, go.
I was just going to say, I think that they recognize that something comes into being and it goes away. And if you wait long enough, some other thing comes into being.
Nice. Now, I don't know how I feel about asking children to hold space for our grief.
Yeah, that's a really good point and an important contradiction. Aaron?
Yeah.
I think this is the prize. The end.
Oh my goodness, that was beautiful. Thank you guys. And as
Thank you.
promised, I'm going to show also. Let's see if I can get this to go this time. You'll see?
A little more than
Yes.
yes. Look at how yes,
Yeah.
phenomenal.
And it's so funny. So my mom sent that to me while she was watching, and I actually was 8 years old, so close to the age that you guys were sharing. I love it.
I love it. I would have been good friends with you. I loved hanging with the older girls, especially the ones that could fight.
Oh, DC. This was so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Like, it was just incredible to witness, and just all the familiar emotions that you've both creatively stirred up for us. I just want to start off and ask, could you discuss your process of collaboration to simply craft this score?
Mm. Should I take a pass, Aaron? Oh yeah. Well, I think what's so lovely, and we're both so deeply thankful to you all at ASU Gamage for inviting us to do this, is that Aaron and I have been in a kind of sprawling conversation for about 20 years. And this whole time we've said we'd love to formally make a piece together. And this is the first time we've done it. So it was our first attempt to take that beauty of connection that we've shared and find a way to articulate it in time to share with other people. So I think we just started by saying, well, what do we usually talk about, and what are our questions? And also, I should say, knowing that this is the very, very, very beginning of whatever this piece may be. So we also thank you for being with us at the start of something.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
one of the things that I like is about working with ASU Gamage and with you all is that, and with Daniel, is that there is an attention to process and an understanding that we're building. Even when we think something's done, we're probably building. I know that about Daniel as an artist too. And so this was like, yeah, what Daniel said. What do we usually talk about? And then like, what if we put some clocks in there? Oh, I'm obsessed with maps. Aren't you obsessed with maps?
Yeah.
Should we make maps? No, let's have everybody else make maps.
I love it. Yes. And so, in just continuing, just hearing about your friendship spanning over 20 years and, the artistic relevance of it, I'm curious about how that's actually influenced your work, your artistic work, and maybe even navigating creative spaces.
I'm gonna tell you this. Aaron and I will have, like, pre-pandemic, we had a little, like, we would have like the bat signal, like where you'd be like, Aaron, I need to meet you. And we would meet in like a bakery in New York City. And Aaron was the person I could bring like very deep quandaries to, both artistic and professional. And we would sit there and we would just be real, It was like, I feel like my art brother, but where you could say everything from like, oh my God, that person, to, what do you think the real ending of this scene is? Yeah.
Right. To like, to also, I have this crazy idea. I don't think it's possible. And then Daniel's the person who's like, of course it's possible. Of course it's possible. And
Mm.
maybe I'm going to remind you that it's possible when you need reminding, So it's both those sit downs. And then it's also like, honestly, there's the like, I just need 5 minutes on the phone. You know what I mean? Like, this just happened. Can we reflect for a minute? Yes, that did happen. That's real.
And so I would add, Fernanda, that there's something about having an anchor in friendship in a field where, especially with solo performers, it can feel like you're really isolated and also a little weird to approach someone else who's making in a similar field and bring, all the stuff that's under the rock with you, not only just the top of it. And I would say this is a beautiful example of something that I hope, as we think about practice going forward post-pandemic, that finding the way to trust each other and to trust being vulnerable with each other is so important. And I think this friendship is a testament to that.
Absolutely. I mean, you're reminding me of Camila Forbes when she talks about radical relationality and just, how that's shifting at this time. I love seeing this. I have another question. And so I think this kind of relates to discussions we've had about witness. Something that you've both shared is that, what does it mean to enter in the same space from a different lens, and that being actually a fertile ground for, again, radical relationality. Could you guys talk a little bit about what witness means to you now in 2020 and, maybe technology or in real time?
Yeah. Well, first I want to say, I mean, it's just like a big, deep, juicy question. And I feel like I really appreciate it, Fernanda, because I think that's, one of the kind of questions for us as practicing artists, all three of us, I would say, and as thinkers, like, how does our work kind of lay bare those big questions? And how does it do it at a time when there's a lot of fear? And so I feel like, I take inspiration from an artist like Daniel for being able to not just do that in the work, but also let the people in the room do it while they witness. So there's something about vulnerability and witness that I think is really key, right now. And even maybe letting us sit in the darkness with work happening in front of us. That's one of the things that I actually miss. And like, I love making participatory structures for people. I love meetings. Like, I like the whole interactive world of kind of new performance, but there's something I miss about being able to be vulnerable in a light that someone else is shedding on themselves.
Yeah.
And I would add to that there is something about like letting a structure help you be a witness. And to that end, like, let's be real, this Zoom world and these boxes and like, the formality, like it's a very strange new vocabulary that so many of us have had to assimilate so quickly. And to find the way to be inside of that and be inside of the kind of distanced conversations that we're forced to have right now in one form or another, and say, I'm going to use this weird structure and find the way to dive down and at least find one moment where I can touch the center, right? And that means being bold in certain ways, and it means also being boring in certain ways, or being, corny in certain ways. It's all part of the process. And I think we tried to let that be part of what we were doing now. It's like, there's going to be some of this that's corny and some of this that's weird. And that's important.
Right.
Because that's what we're in right now.
Right.
Absolutely. Actually, we have a question in the digital audience. I'd be kind of referring to this space as like a prism. So someone on the prism has asked a question, and they're wondering if your goals have changed as artists, and just considering the pandemic specifically.
If the word goals, was it goals?
Yes, goals.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Dan, do you want to go?
You want to take? Sure, I can do that. Yeah, no, happy to. for me, it's only intensified what I would call
Mm.
my goal, which is again to
Mm.
find a way to
Mhm.
get us to
Mm.
true vulnerable
Mm.
presence with one another. Like that's what I want. And so the pandemic has challenged that in all the ways we kind of were mentioning, where we're masked and we're distanced and we're digital.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
more than ever, I'm like, how can we actually be with each other,
Mm.
who we
Yeah.
really are, and what we're
Mhm.
really carrying in real time? And it's like those small acts, then they add up in the larger sphere when we're talking about something like electoral politics. It's because
Mhm.
you're able to be in the room with people you don't know so well and not be all bound up and guarded and off
Mm.
put.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
going to build one little thing on that, which is I find that I don't know about long-term goals in the more traditional sense, but I know that I have deepened a sense that like in any situation where I find myself, especially virtually, like I'm teaching a class or a workshop, or I'm having a conversation with a friend, or whatever it might be, I'm just going to be like, I'm just going to take, we talk about removing some veils. So I'm just going to try to remove one more
Mhm.
veil of the many that are there,
Mhm.
or just like go a bit deeper, and be a
Mhm.
bit more honest than I might have. And that's something I hope carries with a lot of care, that we can hold that when
Mhm.
we come back out into a more
Mhm.
present world.
Yes, absolutely. And this actually I think even builds upon your conversation about freedom. One of the questions you had asked was, when do you feel freest? And I'm wondering, since it was all timed, I'm wondering if you guys could speak on that just a little bit more. What makes you feel
Uh-huh.
free right now?
Hmm.
Mm.
I'll say this. I've been
Yes.
I've been really fortunate to be able to be in contact with a lot of friends that I have had for a long time. So there's
Mm.
Aaron is one, but I have a number of friends who I've been close to, or been working with, or been in some kind of a deep dialogue with for 25, 30 years, some even
Absolutely.
more than that. And I
Mm.
feel freest when I'm held in their love, where
Mm.
they're letting me be scared, and they're letting me be crazy, and they're letting me
Mm.
be anxious, and they're letting me
Mm.
talk a lot more, because like that's the one downside of the pandemic,
Yes.
is when you do find somebody, they get trapped, because you're like, and then
And then you're like,
and then, you know so maybe my mouth feels freest when I'm with them, but I
mm.
really, there's something about, like, I feel free when I'm held by people who love me.
Hmm.
Mm. Yes.
Yeah, the only thing I
Oh.
would add to that is like, um, I feel free maybe it's in a funny way, maybe it's like we are once removed from our normal interactions, so that there is a freedom in
Mm.
just letting that, like letting those needs be felt. Like I
Yeah.
need you to hear this right now. I feel that from other people, friends, like
Mm.
in addition to
Mm.
old and deep friendships, there are people that have become more, who are always important, but they're the people who are like, oh no, this connection that we're missing with each other is realer than we thought. Let's get on the, like,
Mhm.
as corny as it
Mhm.
is, speaking of corny, like the Zoom happy hour becomes like a lifeline with certain people, and new kind of things you can build together grow out of that.
Mhm. Mm. I love that. I'm gonna actually even take a chance to answer the question myself, and, I'm
Please.
a huge I'm a huge letter writer, and so,
Mm.
a friend had showed me this, the wax seal stamp kits, and so that's something that's just kind of been this calming ritual. It's like I'm writing friends and then burning the wax and closing the envelope, and it's just been a beautiful way to, just again, be in relation with people. So,
Hmm.
yeah. This has been really beautiful. Thank you guys so much for engaging in conversation with us this evening. I just want to thank everyone out there who has tuned in this evening again. This has been a guide to a close reading. The spaces between us, crafted by artists Aaron Landsman and Daniel Alexander Jones. And I just want to thank you again both for sharing your knowledge this evening. And thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Yes, thank you,
Good night.
Daniel. Thanks, Fernanda.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye.